Orsi. I am your host for Action for Life Television, that good news program which brings you the big G for the gospel of Jesus Christ and the little g, all the good things that people do to put that gospel of life into action. Hey gang, we have an old friend with us today, Barbara Samuels. She's been with us in the past, and she is very interested in freedom of religion. Not freedom from religion, freedom of religion. And she hails from a part of the world named Long Island. You heard about Long Island? Well, she is a Roman Catholic, and she became very concerned about religious freedom in America, but also religious freedom in our schools. And as you know, Father O has been concerned about that for a long time. And so we asked Barbara to come with us today and to tell us, what is going on right now with religious freedom. And I'm going to bring up a couple of points as the program develops, a couple of cases that I think need to be addressed regarding religious freedom in our country, religious freedom in our schools. So Barbara, tell us what's cooking out there.
Oh, there's so much cooking, Father Orsi, and a lot of it is stuff that should not be cooking, that should be thrown out, taken right off the stove, and the whole thing thrown out, pot and all. But meanwhile, even with things going on that are very challenging and negative, there are good people and good things going on. And that's why I'm so glad to be speaking to you today to help share the information about what is going on that good people can understand and can help with. And with prayer in school, how important for our children to be able to not only go to church on Sunday and say their night prayers with their parents, but know that when they go to school during the day, Jesus is with them. Their faith.
Okay, I want to talk to you, Barbara. Let's talk about this. All right, you said there are a lot of good things happening. Now you're telling me about saying prayers in school. Well, I thought that was banned. I thought you couldn't say prayers in school.
Well, Father Orsi, congratulations to you. You are one of the 99% of good Americans who heard about the Supreme Court case back in 1962 that the media trumpeted as removing God and prayer from the schools. The media, as the media are wont to do today, jumped all over it, put their spin on it, and terrified Americans by convincing them that there was something wrong, according to the Supreme Court, for children to pray to God during the school day. That was not true. The only thing that court decision did was to say that teachers in the schools could not lead or prescribe a specific prayer for students to pray. It did not take prayer out. It did not take God out. It took the teachers out as agents of choosing the prayer. That's all.
Okay, let me ask you this question now. I understand that, that you could have a student-led prayer, correct?
Yes.
Okay, well, how does a student initiate that if you're in a classroom? Well, who's in charge? How does that happen?
Well, there are very clear guidelines put out thanks to President Clinton, who requested them. There are very clear guidelines from the Department of Education on how students may live their lives every day in many ways in their public schools. So, for example, students can pray quietly in a classroom where it would be inappropriate to burst out with "Oh, Lord Jesus, please help us survive this math test."
I said that prayer many a time. It didn't work.
Oh, dear.
It didn't work, gang. Father O's got to admit it. He just did not have the interest, or maybe even the smarts, with that geometry and trigonometry and calculus. Okay, I'm sorry. Holy Spirit just, didn't cooperate with me on that one.
Oh, dear. He didn't fill in the little lines okay, right. But so it makes it very clear in the guidelines that prayer is allowed many times throughout the school day, as long as it is not disruptive. So in a classroom with ongoing, it would be disruptive, as long as it is student-led. So if I'm sitting in the cafeteria at lunch and my friends and I want to pray for someone's mother who's very sick, We can do that on our own. And we had an instance that was heartbreaking where young students in the cafeteria wanted to do exactly that. The principal saw them praying at their lunch table, came to them and said, "You can't pray here." And they said, "Oh, but we need to pray for so and so's mother who's very sick." The principal relented. This is what he said. He said, "All right, you can go up on the stage behind the curtain where no one can see you and pray." That school can lose all of its federal funding for that ignorant thing that the principal said and did to those students. And these kind of examples go on every day in schools all over the country because
Okay, so wait, I want to get, let's
Right.
go back. There's a case called the Kennedy case that came out of California. We had a coach that would kneel down and say a prayer after the game was over. I mean, now, thank God the Supreme Court said, he has every right to do that if he wants to do that. Okay? But is there a circumstance, a situation where somebody could interfere with a group of kids, on the school playground and say, "Oh no, oh no, oh no"? Is that possible?
It can be because unfortunately, some teachers, some administrators, some school employees are ignorant of the students' rights to pray. Students on a playground can sit around and say a prayer. They can read the Bible. They can talk about their faith. They can share their faith experiences with each other. They can do all those things, and no school authority may stop them because it is on free time. So a student can talk about their faith. They can read religious books and the Bible during their free time. They can talk with other students when it's appropriate and not disruptive. And that is
Okay, but how about, Barbara, how about in the classroom? Like the day begins. Could somebody say, "Oh, hold it, want to pray"? No, can't do that?
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up. You must have been reading my notes. I wanted to
How do
mention
you know?
I wanted to mention the moment of silence, the much feared moment of silence. Now, I looked it up last night, as of 2012, there were 34 states in the United States that either allowed or mandated a moment of silence at the beginning of each school day. Now, that moment of silence is very strictly prescribed in that the teacher, when they start the moment of silence, they have to make it clear that this is for students to do what they wish with that moment of silence, to think about their world, to think about their school day, to think about their class, whatever it may be. The teacher may not instruct them, this is a moment of silent prayer. Then that's not allowed, but they can have that moment of silence. And if a student chooses during that time to pray, they may do that.
Okay, now I thought that some people challenged that moment of silence, saying that is prayer. And tell us about that. What happened with that no to the moment of silence?
It was silenced in some states because it was being incorrectly applied, because the teachers were instructing the students to pray. The teacher might even say, whatever your faith is, or if you don't believe in God, this is a moment of silence for you to pray. Now, that's not allowed because it's a teacher, it's a government official telling the student to pray. But the reason that it was allowed in these 34 states, and also Arizona just implemented it last year, the reason it is allowed is because it's presented to the students as, this is your moment to be silent and to contemplate whatever you wish. They're not instructed
Okay, so
to pray.
a teacher can say now, I mean, this is like legal now. Okay, let's take a moment or two to recollect ourselves. That's permitted?
Sounds like it to me. I'm not an attorney, but from the research I did, that sounds like exactly what a teacher could say.
Okay, now what about parents? I mean, just last week, I gave a great, just a great sermon. Hey, folks, I'm humble. I gave a great sermon on parents as being shepherds for their children and being interested in their education. What's going on in school, okay? Now, can a parent go to the school board and say, "Hey, school board, I would like a moment of recollection before each class"? Is that possible?
Of course, it's possible. Absolutely. Parents can go up there with a copy of our booklet here, which has in it the United States guidelines to children's right to live their faith in public school. They can go up and ask to make sure that all of these guidelines are being followed, and they certainly can request a moment of silence, a moment of recollection, and get that conversation going. That would be a wonderful thing.
Hey, parents, folks, do you hear what Barbara's telling you? You have more power than you think. I mean, look, we would all like to begin class like they did in the good old days with a reading from the Bible, all right? King James Bible, a beautiful translation of the Bible, whatever the case may be. But I guess you can't do that anymore. But you can, you can say we'd like few moments to recollect ourselves. Then the kid could think whatever the kid wants to think in his or her head. Am I right about that, Barbara? Yes?
You're absolutely right. And to take that one step further, if a parent before the school year checks with their school district to see if they already have a moment of silence, that can be a starting point. And then if not, go to the school board. But the other thing parents can do then is if my child goes to a school where now there is a moment of silence, I'm going to give my child a card, a prayer card. And on that card is going to be a specific prayer.
I like this, lady. Keep going, lady.
And as a matter of fact, the prayer can be something simple as the Lord's Prayer, or it can be a prayer. You can find them anywhere online. We wrote a little prayer for very young children to go on their prayer cards that says, Jesus, help me through the day, guiding what I do and say. Bless my friends and teachers too. Keep us always close to you. So if the parent starts reading that to their kindergartner or their first grade, starts reading that to them in the morning, oh, we're finishing breakfast, you're on your way to school, let's pray together for 30 seconds. Then you give the child the card. Now they go off to school. They may not do it in kindergarten. They may not do it in first grade, but by second grade, they're going to pull out their little card that mom and dad gave them, and they're going to say that prayer. And they may offer copies of that card to their friends who will be curious to see, what is that little card that you're looking at every day?
How about that? Ladies and gentlemen, now you know what the term to be proactive means. You must be proactive. Just don't throw up your hands and say, nothing I could do about it. The government says you can't do anything about it. The principal will be mad at me. The teacher will be mad at me. My kid will be pointed out as really a kook. No, you have a lot of power. You have a lot of power. You got to do something with it. And, Barbara is going to, tell us more about how we could do something about it. And then you could, get her booklet, and that'll even help you further. Get together in little groups. Sometimes, you might feel like I'm only an individual person. But there are a lot of people that think like you. And get those people together and begin to strategize ways in which you can begin to introduce some time for prayer in the public school system. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. Our kids are in trouble. They're in trouble. And I think it has a lot to do with, moving God out of our schools. The drug problem is unbelievable. Unbelievable. High school kids, overdosing. Fentanyl. It's a tragedy what's happening in this country. Plus, you have young people committing suicide. You know why? They see life as being hopeless. And if you don't have God in your life, maybe some instances really are hopeless. But God gives us hope and God gives us strength. So Barbara, continue telling us about all of these wonderful ideas that you have to help. This is to help children, folks. This is not trying to win court cases. We like to win the court cases, but the court cases are to help children and to help society. can imagine, producing this wonderful program, Action for Life, it costs a great deal of money. We're going to need your help. So if you would like to donate to keep this good news program on the air, please go to your computer, your cell phone, actionforlife.net. Thought for the day. A lot of people think that the religion is only for the next world. Well, it's very much for this world too. It has an impact on our daily lives. Make sure that you take time to know the candidates who are running for office and then to vote for those candidates who are pro-life. Hey gang, I know a lot of you sometimes can't watch all of our episodes of Action for Life. However, we have a solution for that. All you have to do is go to YouTube and search for Action for Life Florida. And you can catch up on all the shows, and guess what? Extra added bonus, you get to hear my weekly homily. So, YouTube and you make a fine couple. Okay, Barbara, continue.
Oh, that's so true, everything you're saying. One of the first cases of school and religion that we dealt with was a student on Long Island who wanted to form an after-school interfaith club because there were so many suicides and attempted suicides in his beautiful upper-class neighborhood there on Long Island. Children were killing themselves because, as you say, they've given up hope. They see no hope in their life. So he thought if students came together from whatever faith they practiced and shared what helps them and shared their beliefs, well, the school district put it off, would not give him an answer. Finally, an assistant principal took him aside and said, look, you're never going to be allowed to do this because it has to do with religion. So his mother called us. She saw a flyer about our organization. We are not attorneys. We don't give any legal advice, but we said, of course, we'll help you. We'll put you in touch with just at random, 3 of the best organizations, the legal firms that defend religious freedom. So we did that. The mother went to First Liberty. They came to Long Island. They had attorneys out there the next day. They had attorneys from Manhattan out on Long Island the next day to meet with her and her son, and they straightened it out, and I won't go into great detail, but the school did what they should have done and what the school knew they should have done.
See, folks, this happened in the belly of the beast. New York City, Long Island is part of New York too. So, it's doable even in a place like, NYC and Long Island. Okay, continue.
But the good thing is so much of these freedoms are already there and are secured for our children. We just don't know it because society, culture, the media doesn't want us to know it, but they are there. So people can go to our website, Americans for Freedom of Religion, and actually look at this brochure and print out a copy of it for themselves. And when they open it up, one of the first things it says is to learn the 2 big lies about God and in our society. And this has to do so much with our students and with our country in general. If you're a good American, you know the separation of church and state says that we can't insert God and religion and church into so many places in our government, certainly in our schools, etc., because of separation of church and state. Well, that is the first huge lie that has done so much damage to the practice of religion in this country, because a good Catholic who's a good American who doesn't know the truth will stand up and tell us when we're speaking and teaching, we'll say, but we know separation of church and state, and we have to explain to them. Separation of church and state was Thomas Jefferson's protection of conscience and protection of the individual practice of your conscience from state. It was the protection of church from state, not the other way around, and it has been turned 180 degrees.
Yeah, folks, the main point behind all of this at the founding was that we would not have a national church. Like the Church of England is the Church of England, the Anglican Church. We don't have a state church here in the U.S. of A. But we have freedom of religion where all of the churches are free to practice their religion and I'm going to say this importantly, and to inform the populace as to what we believe is right and what we believe is moral. We have a place in the public square, and you have a lot of people that every time a pastor or a priest or a rabbi begins to talk about a political issue, oh, he's mixing church and state. He can't do that. Baloney. Baloney. You know why? Politics and religion, they do go together, because if you don't have religion, you're going to have a politics that has gone astray. And the founders realized the importance of religion in the American project. Please continue before I get more agitated.
Okay, watch your blood pressure there, Father. I so often quote that our Constitution was made only for moral and religious people. It is wholly unfit for the government of any other. I believe it was John Adams who said that. When you go through the writings and the statements and the speeches of our founders, they knew that we had to have morality. Why? We had to have morality because in their constitution of this new nation, they were giving the individual more freedoms than in any other country in the history of the world. And in order for those freedoms to be protected, they had to be undergirded and supported by the individual's moral convictions. Without those moral convictions, there can be no freedom. Those who will not live by the 10 commandments must live by the 10,000 commandments. There must be controls from within so that there need be fewer controls from without. The founders knew that so well, and they knew that faith, whatever that faith may be, whatever that religion may be, would give that morality that would protect our liberties. And that's why we see our liberties under such challenge now, because the morality is being taken away.
And the erosion of our society, the erosion of our morals, the erosion of our values, the erosion of our civil engagement, because God is taken out of the equation. I think it was Chesterton who said, if you believe in nothing, you'll believe in anything. And now all of a sudden, what are we doing? We're believing in practically anything. And we have a nation that is becoming godless. Young people are no longer believers, or they simply have given up on any kind of organized religion for sure. But we also have a lot of people these days that, well, they put their faith in material things. They put their faith in what's, the socialist doctrines are. We're going to make this a workers' paradise. They have no moral compass. And you need that moral compass to have a just and a civil society. And our civil society is breaking down. We are rudderless at the moment. You got to start when the kids are young. You can't say, oh, well, when they reach 100 years old, they'll make up their own mind. It doesn't work that way. It starts with you, parents. It starts with you. Okay, tell me some more stuff before I have to take my medicine.
Okay, I believe it was Lenin who said, give me the children for 4 years, and the seeds I have planted will never be uprooted. So you're absolutely right, Father. It starts in earliest childhood, even before your children start to school. They need to know that you, as a parent, have faith in God. They need to know that God is important to you and to their family and to their family life. And that is so basic to the culture of your particular family. Every family has its very own family culture. It may be the smallest family, one parent, one child. It may be a huge family, but every family has their own family culture. And be careful to cultivate a culture that includes God and the knowledge of God, because if you don't teach your children what is right and what is wrong, what is desirable and what is not desirable, someone else will teach them. And they will not teach them what you would teach them. You must step in as a parent. You are so blessed to have these children of yours to guide, to teach, to nurture, and to bring to God and to put them in a place where they will have the strength of their faith.
If you don't do this, you're abdicating your responsibility as a parent. And you're not shepherding the children correctly, and you're responsible. You'll be responsible for their immortal souls. Now, let me just give you a simple thing that you could do. You ever see a children's Bible? They're beautiful. Get a children's Bible, put it on your table in your living room, and maybe read something from the children's Bible, even when they're very small. Okay? That's something that you can do. Go to church. I don't care whatever church you belong to. Go to church and at least let them see that there is a faith community, that there are people that have a belief in a transcendent being who gives us guidance, who calls us to live moral lives, who calls us to be people of compassion for the poor and the sick and the people who are downtrodden. See, that's what we have to do. If you don't do that, folks, who's to blame? Who's to blame? And who's the one responsible then when the kids, they've turned to drinking and pornography and drugs and suicide? Whose fault is it? It's your fault. So I want to, Barbara, I want to thank you so much. Yes, we got to get religion back in the schools in some way, but we have to start at home. It starts at home with the example of parents, and that's your responsibility, parents, because you're going to have to stand before God, and God's going to say, hey, what did you do to help your child get to heaven? If you stand there and say, I did nothing, you're not going to heaven, and neither is the kid. Okay, gang, I'm for action, Barbara's for action, and I hope you are too. We would like to thank our generous sponsors for their wonderful support. Thanks for watching. Please join us next time for Action for Life. I'm for action, and I hope you are too. I'm Father Michael Orsi. I am your host for Action for Life Television, that good news program which talks about the gospel of Jesus Christ, the big G, and the little g, all the good things that people are doing to put the gospel of life into action. So please join us for the next episode of Action for Life.